name's Hoffower. I'll be your host today for Vegan World Radio on KPFT 90.1 at www.veganworldradio.org. Today we'll be speaking with Allison Hunter, a visual artist who recently had an exhibition at Diverse Works. What I'd really like to know is what the catalyst was to why you felt compelled to embark on this project.
I'd have to thank my husband for this because he has worked a lot on animals and he's written several books. But the first one that really got me into this was his book called Animal Rights, R-I-T-E-S. And basically that deals with how the animal is the new other in society. He really made me think about how we look at animals differently and also just how it's a complex relationship. So it's not just like black and white, it's not that simple. Like we should be the stewards of animals. We also, we do try to save them, but we also don't, we also hurt them.
I think Allison's trying to make us realize that animals are not just out there, but they're part of the universe, and that they behave not so differently from how we behave. And it's she casts them in a beautiful, interesting, realistic light, and does a good job of, in a very subtle, graceful way, commenting on capitalism, environmentalism, modern culture.
You had mentioned here in your artist statement that you'd like to focus on how we perceive or don't perceive animals in contemporary zoos. For example, in the zoo, the animal is often perceived as merely part of an exhibit rather than a unique living creature. And within this installation, you reverse that dynamic?
Yeah, well, like for instance, with the frog piece in the very beginning, this frog in real life is about, the size of a postage stamp. But within this context, it actually becomes a towering, huge, very forceful, powerful creature, and the human in front of it is small and diminished. It's almost like freeing the animals from their cages within a virtual space, freeing their sounds into the space.
Today we speak with Allison Hunter, who recently opened an exhibition at Diverse Works on March 12th. In her recent exhibition, entitled Zoosphere, she compiled video footage of animals at the Houston Zoo and the Cockerell Butterfly Center, and then digitally manipulated the video and audio of the footage. She, quote, wanted to focus on how we perceive or don't perceive animals in contemporary zoos. For example, in a zoo, the animal is often perceived as merely part of an exhibit rather than as a unique living creature. Within this installation, I reverse that dynamic. End quote. The video footage is phenomenal. You had mentioned that you spent 6 months at the Houston Zoo. How was that experience?
It was interesting because I've actually been at those locations for the last 6 years when I was doing still photography, and so I was kind of used to that. It was nice because I wouldn't have to worry about what the other people were thinking, and I just really wanted to interact with the animals, But then this time I showed up with a video camera and someone at the zoo saw me and I thought, well, why don't I just tell her that what I'm doing is going to be this great show at Diverse Works. But then she was like, oh, you can't do that. You can't just shoot things here and then use them in a public display without letting us know. So then I did talk to the zoo, the PR people, and they were really nice about it.
I guess, how did it make you feel emotionally to view these animals within cages and to a certain extent exploited, informative and educational tools, but also for profit?
Right. Right. I mean, that's the I guess the crux of it right there, is that it is a complex situation again, because some of these animals are being saved from extinction. Like the Panamanian golden frog is really threatened. And so the zoo, and this is what the PR person was telling me, is how much they work to help save them. Beyond just this site, they're also going to Brazil and to other countries to work hard and get their hands dirty on it, right? What you and I see is the exploitive situation, that the glass barriers, and these poor animals stuck there, So that was really hard to, just plop my camera down and just watch this lizard with one arm. Clearly, not a healthy lizard, but saved, right? He probably would have been killed in the wild, but just sort of climbing up and looking out. So it was a tough thing that way. Really just, so I'm trying to capture all of that in this. So, you don't just take away from it a one-sided point of view. You just kind of hopefully brings a lot of questions,
I myself have not had the opportunity to go to the Houston Zoo. However, I did 2 years ago go to Galveston, where they have these pyramids, this moody gardens, and I almost found it devastating. Of course, on one level you do have these animals that are being saved, but then I had this experience of seeing this caged panther, and it was maybe a 12-foot by 8-foot cage, and it was pacing back and forth, and I've heard that animals that are in captivity will do that frequently and become almost listless in nature, a very morose state, and that to me was really hard. But in the film with the bat, and the bat seems very serene, very affable, approachable. Not something that I typically consider an image of.
That came to me because when I was at the zoo, one of the keepers of the other bat exhibit there took time to actually talk to me and show me what she was doing and how the bats feed, and these are, how they're eating the bananas and all the fruit that they put out for them. So having that knowledge really brought me closer to the animal and to the way it was reacting in that space. So when I went to this other one and saw the larger bats, the straw-colored fruit bats, and they are large. Normally I would be afraid because of the way they just have this, they look like the Dracula bat you've seen, But here I noticed them chewing on the little banana pieces and peacefully, licking their fingers afterwards. And so, because I had the knowledge from the other zookeeper, I was able to sort of bring that into my work.
It is a very multifaceted, a very complex effort on the parts of the individuals who are saving these animals, putting themselves in a position where they're progressing and evolving, and it's did you feel anything of a spiritual connection with these animals while you're filming?
I don't know. The one thing that comes to mind is when I would go, there would be certain types of visitors, and that was interesting for me. Like one day I was there looking at the elephants, and there was clearly someone who had a lot of knowledge about them, and who was looking at them with a very delicate, sensibility. But then there are so many times there are these kids that are rowdy, they're from, groups, they all have the same t-shirts on, and all they want is their ice cream, And that to me was striking, like, wow, this is tough for the zoo, because they have this audience of all kinds, and they're trying to educate, So they're trying to show the animals in a great light, but then they're also trying to be entertaining.
Ice cream.
Oh, yeah, and I was like, you just ruined my peaceful moment. I guess the spiritual, things like the frog, really just staring at the frog, it was really amazing, how they would creep over slowly and look out and do these movements. It made me look more closely and think about this delicate, tiny little creature, that you would overlook. A lot of the animals I photographed as stills for the last, I guess, 6-7 years were the ones that were overlooked at the zoo. Like I have a hen, a chicken, I have a goat. Most people go there and look at the elephants, but they don't look at the little goat. That's my work in general, is looking at the thing or the person on the fringes, the animal on the fringes of society, and trying to help people see them differently. And this piece right here on the floor was a really tough one for us to do because we wanted it to look like almost like a pool of water. So we wanted the technology to disappear, a situation where you don't really notice the technology. You can lose yourself and forget that and just see the work.
I think it's a great idea. This big flat screen is different because I've never seen an electronic display on the floor. It's very interesting. It's a different perspective, and these koi are generally only a foot and a half, and now they're 18 feet. Now I feel like a minnow. Now I know what a minnow feels like.
The placement of the video plays a very pivotal role in the viewing experience. You had mentioned here in your artist statement that you'd like to focus on how we perceive or don't perceive animals in contemporary zoos. For example, in the zoo, the animal is often perceived as merely part of an exhibit rather than a unique living creature. And within this installation, you reverse that dynamic.
Yeah, well, like for instance, with the frog piece in the very beginning, this frog in real life is about, the size of a postage stamp. And but within this context, it actually becomes a towering, huge, very forceful, powerful creature, and the human in front of it is small and diminished. And that's one way, using scale is one way to reverse the dynamic that is found in nature in the zoo.
Yeah, the installation is beautiful. What has been really beautiful speaking with you. I'm really glad I had the opportunity.
It's been great speaking with you and Vegan World Radio. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
For those of you who don't already know, the interviewer you just heard, Aaron Hoffower, passed away a few weeks ago in Austin. He was a kind spirit and a light in this world. He will be missed and remembered.